How's it going, my RWBY friends? A couple things before we get started in the Volume 6, Chapter 9 review. The first thing is I want to wish you a Happy New Year's and a Happy New Year's Eve. Today's New Year's Eve, guys. Be safe out there. Don't do anything too crazy. And if you're going to drink, definitely be sure you have a designated driver, a DD, or take an Uber back, or sleep in your car, or at a friend's house, or something. Just be responsible, be safe, guys. That's all I want to ask of you guys. And enjoy the New Year's Eve. Enjoy the New Year. Let's make it a wonderful 2019. Now, the next thing, you might be wondering why I'm wearing glasses in the house like some weirdo, right? Well, okay, I was out very late last night. I had to drive all the way back. I had to drive to downtown, basically, and then back. Got back super late. I look like a zombie today, guys. I literally look like a zombie. It actually scared me. I actually look like I scared myself. It's very... Oh, it's bad, guys. It's bad. I look like a freaking... My eyes are red, and I have, like, huge bags. So that's why I'm wearing glasses, because I didn't want to scare myself, like, recording this. And also scare the viewers away, obviously, as well. So I'm wearing glasses. Last thing, since I'm pretty tired today, got back late, I like made a bunch of bullet point notes for the review. So it's not going to be like my normal reviews where I can just kind of like, I don't know, I'm pretty good at like talking on the spot, I think. This one is going to be a little bit like more me reading these bullet points and talking about them. So if it sounds a little bit different, that is why. And that's really it, guys. With that said, we're going to get into the review right now. So the first thing I want to talk about, we're going to take it in chronological order. So we're going to get started with the Emerald and Mercury scene. This was definitely interesting, guys. I like this scene a lot. Let me put it this way. I like this whole chapter a lot, but there are a few like nitpicks I have about it. But overall, this chapter was amazing. This whole volume has been amazing. But let's get into more details, taking it again from the top with Emerald and Mercury. So what I didn't like about this scene was that Mercury's Emerald... I told you guys I was tired. Is that Mercury's development seems like it got cut. Like, let me put it this way. In Volume 4, Chapter 1, Mercury seemed very horrified watching the Grimm spawn from the pools, so did Emerald. And every other scene we had of Mercury in Volume 4, he was either just not talking or he was in the back, arms crossed, like looking very out of place, like he didn't like what was going on. Seemed like Mercury and Emerald were kind of not liking working for Salem. Mercury more so, though, because Emerald just always kind of wanted to do whatever Cinder wanted to do. She looks up to Cinder, she loves Cinder in her own way, and she just kind of wants to, like, be like Cinder and help Cinder. Mercury just doesn't have that kind of relationship with Cinder. Even this chapter, he acknowledges that Cinder just kind of doesn't really care about them and does her own thing. So, it seems like Mercury would have had no problem leaving Salem's crew if he could do so without, you know, being hunted down and X'd off. But then this chapter changes that. Says that Mercury actually likes working for Salem. It's interesting because Emerald asked Mercury why he went with Cinder. It's always been heavily implied that Cinder didn't really give him a choice. It was join us or get X'd off. But Mercury says otherwise in this chapter. He says it just seemed like it was meant to be, which is weird. It is really weird because if you look at all the situation, if you look at the surrounding like circumstances in this situation, let's first look at Rome and Torchwick actually. Cinder basically forced Roman into working for her. Roman even says this in some of his final moments, that in terms of what RWBY asked him, it's not what he has to gain from working with Cinder, it's that he can't afford to lose. Obviously, that means she threatened him with being, threatened him with being X'd off, man. So that's just the way it is. So I always assumed it was kind of a similar thing with Mercury. If not even more so, because Mercury literally was already on death's door in that scene. His knees were like literally, his legs were like about to stop working. They were bandaged up. He was bleeding. He had probably no aura left, given the fact that he was bleeding. If he took injury, he had no aura left, most likely. He was worn down, tired, no house to go to anymore, living in the middle of the woods. A lot of negativity, a lot of Grimm probably were going to be there soon. Mercury was pretty screwed. So I always assumed Cinder was like, all right, well, you can join us and we can, get you patched up, take you to the shelter and all that sort of stuff. Or we can just leave you here to bleed out and die. And I'm not going to say X'd off anymore for the rest of this video. We'll just see what happens. Or Cinder just said, or I'll kill you myself. You can join me, or I will kill you or just leave you here to die. What do you want to do? But that's not the case, apparently. Mercury thought, oh, this is a great opportunity for me to work with some people that are like my dad, who I hate. Why not work with them? And I'm saying it like that way on purpose because it's kind of ironic, right? That was another reason why I could always see Mercury betraying Salem's crew, because it seemed like people like Tyrion specifically, that are just unhinged and like making people suffer and do bad things, would have reminded him of his father that he hates, Marcus Black, who wasn't an alcoholic, assassin, and just generally a scummy dude. Then we find out this chapter that Marcus actually stole Mercury Semblance. Which is good and bad for us, the viewer, because we've always wondered what Mercury Semblance was and wanted more information on it. And we didn't really get to find out what his semblance was, and we didn't get any information on it. Ironically enough, we actually found out more information on Marcus's semblance this chapter than Mercury's. We know that Marcus's semblance allows him to steal other people's semblances. Now, it's a very loose term. We don't know if it's like he can steal one semblance at a time, and if he can use that semblance, or if it's just stolen and like locked down, kind of like an eraser head from My Hero Academia kind of thing. Or if it really is like, like he can steal a bunch of different semblances and use them, kind of like an all-for-one kind of thing. I'm going to assume that's not the case because he would be really overpowered if that was the case. I'm going to assume he can just kind of like steal one semblance at a time and maybe use that semblance. If that's the case, though, it means when he stole Mercury's, it overrode the other semblance that he had stolen already. And given his job as assassin, I'm pretty sure that he probably had a very good semblance. So if he stole Mercury's, either Mercury's semblance was really good, or he really took that training so seriously that he gave up the OP semblance he had already stolen from someone just to steal Mercury's, so that Mercury's training could get better. Also because he's a giant DOUCHE, but at least in this respect, it was more so like, yeah, Mercury even admitted it was so Marcus could force him to train without relying on that crutch. Basically the opposite of Yang, who totally relied on her semblance to get through fights. Tai called her out on this. And she's been working on that at least. But still, it's funny. It's literally the opposite of Yang. And it's funny because Yang and Mercury do have that rivalry thing going on, given what happened in Volume 3. So just a cool little bit of flavor with that whole backstory and how it correlates to Yang in a way. So Mercury says he's right where he's supposed to be, working with Salem. Again, surprising for me. Tyrion drops in on Emerald and Mercury. Or not really drops in, but shows them that he was watching the entire time anyway. So he drops in, and basically he threatens them with death if they betray Salem. Mentions that he is going to Alice with Watts to stop Ironwood from coming to his senses, and then he asks asking Vacuo for his aid. Let me put that differently because I read my notes wrong. I shouldn't have said that period, or I shouldn't have paused when I did. Let me re-say that. So Tyrion says that he is going with Watts to stop Ironwood from coming to his senses and asking Vacuo for aid. First of all, asking Vacuo for aid for what exactly? As far as I know, Alice isn't really under attack right now. I mean, there's Grimm over there, but it's not like they've been in a coordinated attack as far as I know. Yes, Atlas is on lockdown, but what aid would they need from Vacuo specifically? If Ironwood knew that the relic from Haven was getting taken to Atlas, and you'd have to protect 2 relics at his kingdom, I could see him asking for aid in that case. But Ironwood doesn't know that relic is on the way to him right now, or at least trying to get on the way to him. We know it's not going so well for Team RWBY and Co. So I'm very curious, like, what aid he needs from Vacuo. I'm also very curious how they phrase that, Ironwood coming to his senses. It's like they know very well how easily manipulated Ironwood is. He's a good guy who takes things a little bit too far in terms of control. He doesn't mind forcing the population under his heel, under his iron fist, for the sake of security and protection. It's a very sketchy gray line, and a subject I've talked about a lot over the years. I've even made a whole theory about how I think the final enemy of RWBY could very well be Atlas, not Salem. For example, once Salem is beaten, if they want to continue the show, a perfect arc would be having Atlas trying to take over the rest of Remnant for the sake of securing the world and stopping more wars and stuff like that. The point is, Ironwood has continued to spiral downwards into tyranny more and more and more, even though he thinks he's doing the right thing. And if we look at his reference to the Wizard of Oz, to the Tin Man thought he didn't have a heart. And then it turned out that he had a heart the whole time. This is who, is kind of inspired from Ironwood. We're not inspired entirely, but, we get different references to Wizard of Oz with these characters. And it's basically an inversion of the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz with what we see in Ironwood. Ironwood always had the heart, but he's slowly losing it as things get crazier and crazier. It is the opposite. It is an inversion of the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz, who had a heart but didn't realize it. Ironwood has a heart and he's losing it. Interesting stuff. Anyways, I probably could have phrased that a little bit better. I apologize. I'm super tired, as you guys already know. And I'm actually not drinking coffee because I want to try to get to sleep early tonight so I can catch up on sleep. So imagine that, guys. I'm just straight up drinking water. It's in the afternoon and I'm drinking water, not coffee. So that's not helping the case. The next scene we get is the RWBY Rewind scene. I've already talked about this in the video I made talking about that RWBY Rewind scene, so I'm going to be pretty short on this part. Basically, the nice things from the scene were that they fixed the animation errors, so that was cool. And when they aired in RWBY Rewind, a lot of people, myself included, were making fun of the characters that were clipping in the background, walking through the walls and whatnot, because it was honestly really funny looking. But they fixed all that, so good on them. They did a good job fixing up them animation errors. And I feel like they changed Saffron's dialogue a little bit, slightly. But I'm not sure on that. Anyways, I like Jaune in this scene. He gets more respectable. He admits his mistakes. Though it's still ironic to me that they refuse to tell Saffron what's going on entirely. They're basically keeping secrets from her. And Jaune was so upset at Ozpin for keeping secrets from him and them. So the irony there is definitely something I can appreciate. But at the same time, I want to give Jaune credit because I rag on him a lot, yeah. But part of the reason why I hate on Jaune a lot of the time is because I don't like how he doesn't own up to his mistakes. And he's always blaming it on like Ozpin or Crow, basically blaming it on other people and just not owning up to them. This scene, he did own up to his mistakes, and I like that a lot. Jaune got some good points for me in this scene. And he got some more good points for me in the next scene. The Pyrrha scene. We'll talk about that right now. The Pyrrha statue scene. So right off the bat, it starts with that leaf. A callback to the Volume 3 scenes with the leaf in them from chapters Destiny and End of the Beginning. Now, I'll admit, when I first saw the leaf, I thought for a second that this was going to be a very short foreshadowing that Cinder was about to walk on screen. And by short, I mean like maybe 5 to 30 seconds later, we would have Cinder walking by, and then some dialogue exchanged between Cinder and Jaune, or a fight starting or something like that. Part of the reason why I thought that was because the way Jaune sat down and Nora and Ren conveniently left him alone. Then I saw the fall leaf coming down. I'm like, oh god, wait, is that going to mean Cinder's coming? I was on the edge of my seat in that moment, guys. Then it turned out to be a reference to Pyrrha, which makes sense as well because she was almost a fall maiden. And we, like I said, we've seen these leaves before in Volume 3, chapters Destiny and End of the Beginning. So that totally makes sense, and I liked that callback with the leaf. I also want to mention what Pyrrha said way back in, I believe, Volume 2 when she unlocked his aura. Or actually, it wasn't Volume 1. Way back in Volume 1 when Pyrrha unlocked Jaune's aura. And she said, "It is in passing that we achieve immortality." An interesting line that certainly has become more and more true throughout the years after what we saw occurred to Pyrrha. Her statue's now permanently, well, hopefully permanently. A statue isn't a permanent thing, you know, it can be destroyed. But her statue's permanently now in Argus. And those memories will always be there with the people that she impacted throughout life. It is in passing. It is in passing that we achieve immortality. And then we have the red-haired woman. So this is a character a lot of people are theorizing on right now, and I'm probably going to make a separate video on this topic just because it's a good topic to talk about. But I'll talk about it right now anyways because, well, I need to. Okay, so the red-haired woman. Is this Pyrrha's mom? Is this one of Pyrrha's siblings, a sister? Is this Pyrrha who's resurrected? Or is this a ghost of Pyrrha? These are all theories that are floating around in the RWBY community right now. Personally, I think it's Pyrrha's mom. I think that's the most likely. It could also fairly likely be a sister or another relative or something like that. I definitely don't think it's Pyrrha resurrected, and I definitely don't think it's a ghost of Pyrrha either. And this scene, I'm not sure how to explain this. I really like this scene. I really did. It was a great scene. But it was odd in some ways as well. I did not cry while watching this, for the record. You'll see when I post my reaction. I did cry greatly during Volume 4, chapter, was it 2 or chapter 1? When Jaune was training to the tape on his scroll of Pyrrha talking to him and just watching her and trying to listen to her and training to that and then having it on repeat. Like that scene broke me, dude. I was freaking crying hard to that one. But I didn't cry at all on this one. I don't know. It was a great scene. I want to emphasize that. But some of it felt like a little odd. Like conveniently the statue's there. Conveniently Pyrrha's mom or whoever she was there. Conveniently Jaune is alone. I wasn't also too big a fan of how the statue looks so solemn and sad. If you look at the concept art at the end of the chapter, the statue's in a whole different pose. She's more proud. She's standing in a more respectable way. And I get that it's a sad thing that happened to Pyrrha, but I just feel like the concept art did what... I feel like the concept art reflected her sacrifice better than the actual statue did, where it just kind of made her look honestly like sad and it's really the only way to put it, sad, man. Like, her head's down, her eyes are closed, she's holding her shield very meekly, her weapon is sheathed, Milo and Akuo, which, by the way, is the shield and the spear / gun / sword, Milo and Akuo. But nitpicks aside, it was a great scene, like I said, and let's talk about how this went down. So it's interesting because Pyrrha ended up training at Sanctum, which we find out. So for those of you that don't know, here's how it works in the Huntsman Academy system. You train at a primary school, in this case Sanctum, and then you go to a secondary school. In this case, that would be Haven. So that's why people were surprised and saddened when Pyrrha chose going to Beacon over going to Haven, because Sanctum is the primary school in Mistral, and Haven is the secondary school in Mistral. The primary school in Vale is Signal, and then Signal students usually go to Beacon. Now, as we know, this can be swapped around somewhat, but this is how it's supposed to go generally. So that's why people were sad that Pyrrha went to Vale over Haven. Just to clarify that for anyone that doesn't know how the academy system works, some people do forget about the primary schools, and I can't really blame them. They're not really talked about very often, so totally understandable. Now, the red-haired woman says, Pyrrha was surrounded by amazing people at Beacon, and says that she understood that she had a responsibility to try. I don't think she would regret her choice, because a huntress would understand that there really wasn't a choice to make, and a huntress is what she always wanted to be. I'm going to reread that line in just a moment because it's really important. Pyrrha is a character who I never personally was like a huge fan of. I like Pyrrha a lot, but she was never one of my favorite characters, and there are plenty of characters I have always liked more than Pyrrha. But I will say, Pyrrha is a character who has been growing on me with age, which is funny because she hasn't been in the show anymore. So it's not through her own development that she's been growing on me. It's actually been through the development of other characters that she's been growing on me, specifically in a negative way. Pyrrha understood that things are not perfect, and that sometimes you just need to do what you can to do the best you can, given the circumstances that are going on. I don't like how Yang has been complaining in Volume 5 and Volume 6 about Ozpin doing things the way he does. I don't like her complaining about the situation being as bad as it's been and things like that. I don't like Yang and Weiss drawing their weapons on Crow so hastily. Just things like this, where these characters that are supposed to be huntresses and huntsmen act like spoiled brats. I don't like how that's been going on throughout Volume 5 and 6. And I'll put Jaune on that list as well. But I also want to emphasize the fact that Jaune's been growing on me this chapter specifically, and I'll talk about that more because what he says in the scene when they're home is really good for Jaune, and I like that a lot. But the point is, right now, a lot of these characters complain that things are not perfect when they signed up for this to begin with. They signed up to train at an academy to basically learn how to defend themselves, because the world they live in is very dangerous, and death's door is constantly all around everybody, because the Grimm are a thing, and tensions are high between these kingdoms who have had historical World War fights that almost led to total genocide before. Pyrrha understood that the world is not perfect, and that you're never going to get a perfect scenario where it's like, I have this perfect choice to make this perfect decision. Pyrrha understood that people are flawed, that choices are flawed, that you'll never have all the information you need to make the decision that you need to do, that very tough decision. But Pyrrha took it with pride and dignity, and that's why she's been growing on me. Pyrrha understood that things are not perfect. I want to emphasize that. And to repeat what the red-haired woman said about Pyrrha, she understood that she had a responsibility to try. I don't think she would regret her choice, because a huntress would understand that there really wasn't a choice to make, and a huntress is what she always wanted to be. It's like some of these characters like Yang and Weiss and Jaune forget that they wanted to become huntsmen or huntresses, and that sometimes that means you need to take orders from people that are more experienced and know more than you. That's why people do internships in real life, because they want to receive the knowledge from those that are more experienced than them. That's just the way it is. Pyrrha understood this. Other characters don't. And hopefully they will understand that more and more and more as time goes on. And as I said already, this chapter already won Jaune a lot of points in my book. A lot more respect for Jaune I do have now. Jaune apologizes to Ren and Nora, saying, I've been a terrible leader and a terrible friend. And I want to emphasize the fact again that I find this awesome, that he's owning up to his mistakes and he's not blaming for others on what happened. So hopefully Jaune continues to get these good changes in his attitude from this point moving forward, now that he has some more closure from this scene. And Jaune says he knew that Pyrrha thought she didn't have a chance at winning, but she had to do it anyways, which is also a great line by Jaune, because it's true. This is something the viewers, or rather the RWBY fandom, is caught on immediately after what happened to Pyrrha. It's a reference, her name, to a Pyrrhic victory, which means you technically won, but it came at a great cost. So yes, Beacon was defended, but it came at a great cost. Pyrrha's life, amongst other things. And Pyrrha knew she didn't have a chance of beating Cinder, but she tried anyways. She didn't complain about it. She didn't blame Ozpin for all this. She just went and did what she knew had to be done for the sake of the world, the sake of helping out humanity and helping those who can't defend themselves. It's not always going to be a perfect scenario where you know everything about the choices you have to make, but you have to do the best you can. And that's something I do hope characters like Yang and, well, let's just say Yang and some other characters, I'll just leave it at that kind of general thing, will take note of moving forward as well. So yeah, I think Jaune had some great development this chapter, and I just hope he keeps moving forward with that development. I hope he doesn't regress into angsty, annoying Jaune. I think he has potential to be an amazing character, and this is definitely a good step forward into him becoming the esteemable Jaune arc that he can be. Now back at the house. Actually, before we go back in the house, let's talk about the red-haired woman again. So some people do think it's like pure resurrected. I already talked about this, but I guess the flowers she brought in can symbolize rebirth, or also maternity. There's two different things I've heard about that. Here's the thing. Here's the thing I don't like about the scene. So if it's Pyrrha's mom, well, first of all, I'm surprised Jaune didn't like question who this lady was, because she looks very much like Pyrrha, looks very much like you'd imagine Pyrrha's mom to look like. So I was shocked that Jaune didn't ask, like, who are you? Like, how do you know Pyrrha? Or mention how she looks kind of like Pyrrha or something like that. I was really surprised it didn't happen. Now, I've talked with some people about this already, and some people said, well, he probably already knew it was Pyrrha's mom, which makes no sense, because if he knew that was Pyrrha's mom, the whole conversation would have been way different. He would have been like, whoa, you're Pyrrha's mom. I'm Jaune Arc. If they met in real life before, this whole conversation would be different. That he wouldn't introduce himself. He'd just be like, whoa, it's you. He would use her name. If he knew who she was, he would use her name. He never used her name. If he knew it was the mom for sure, he would have acted differently. So it's just a little bit weird how the dialogue went. He didn't question who she was or anything like that, which I just found surprising. So if it's Pyrrha's mom, there are some little weird things with the way that discussion went down. If it's not Pyrrha's mom and it is actually like a ghost of Pyrrha or Pyrrha resurrected, that's even weirder, because that just makes a ton of plot holes and inconsistencies with the show. We know that there is an afterlife, because Ozma said to the God of Light that he would prefer to go back to the afterlife. So we know there's an afterlife in Remnant, but we've never seen cases where there's like actually a ghost or characters being resurrected besides Ozpin. So it would just be really weird if Pyrrha was somehow magically, conveniently resurrected, or somehow there's a Pyrrha ghost, even though we've never seen that there's ghosts in this show before, and it's conveniently, like, it's too coincidental, right? So I don't like that stuff. But all in all, just a great scene. I just want to mention that the dialogue was a little weird with the way Jaune handled it, but it's all good. It's all good. Still a great scene. So now back at the house. So Crow was there drunk. Now, at first, when I saw this, I was like hating on Crow, honestly. And you guys know that means a lot for me. I mean, I have Crow's sword right here. Crow is like my favorite character, one of my favorite characters in the show. I cosplayed Crow twice now at Anime Expo, and twice being multiple days in a row. I've spent many hours cosplaying as Crow, having pictures taken of me as Crow, trying to be in character, hitting on girls like Crow would do, you know, because he's a player and all that. I love Crow, but I'm not biased, guys. I hate on Yang a lot. I hate on Jaune a lot. I used to hate on Sun a lot, but you guys know, I want to prove that I'm not biased, right? I used to hate on Sun in Volume 4, but when Volume 5 rolled around, I told you guys, like, I like Sun now. He grew on me. My opinion of Sun went from hating him to actually liking him in Volume 5, so I'm not biased in that way. Jaune, I've been hating on Jaune for a while, but I've already admitted this video that this chapter made Jaune a lot more likable to me, and he's just a better character to me now. He needed this development. I'm glad he's finally getting it, and not just the angsty, annoying complainer that he was for a while. So I don't want to seem like I'm biased, guys. Sun has grown on me. Jaune has grown on me now. Yang, I still hate on. but it doesn't mean I'm gonna permanently hate on her. She could easily like do things to turn around in my book. It's just my opinion, guys. We're all welcome to our opinion. You're welcome to yours. If you like Yang, that's fine. If you don't like Yang, that's fine too. Personally, I don't like how Yang's been acting in Volume 5 and Volume 6. I really don't. But that doesn't mean I'm not open to the idea of her getting more development and changing and coming back around, because I used to like Yang a lot. It's just I don't like what she's been doing recently. That's what happens, guys. People make choices. Those choices reflect on that character and how other people interact with you for the choices that you make in life. So I'll see how Yang develops. And how does this relate to Crow, though? Because I was talking about Crow. Well, the point is, I'm not biased. That's why I'm going about all this, because I didn't really like what Crow is doing in this chapter. I don't like how much Crow's complaining as well. And he's been doing this the whole volume, really. And I get where he's coming from. I made a whole, like, 20-minute video talking about how I understand Crow's situation after, I think it was, like, Volume 6, Chapter 4 or Chapter 5. After the Lost Fable flashback, when Crow, like, punched Oscar, I was like, look, I don't like Crow doing this. I don't like Crow hating on Ozpin. I don't like Crow thinking he hasn't done anything good in his life, when he has. Just because Salem can't be defeated doesn't mean all the stuff Crow has been doing to keep society stable and keep people living a high quality of life hasn't been for any reason, because it has been for a good reason. As we've seen, you know, living on Remnant could be a lot worse, and it was a lot worse in the past. Living in Remnant nowadays is not too bad compared to the past. So whatever Ozpin and Crow has been doing has certainly been working. So I don't like Crow hating on himself and hating on Ozpin, just because there's no plan to really beat Salem at the moment. They've been doing other things that have been working, like, sure, beating Salem is a good end goal, but keeping society stable and having a system where people can have freedom of choice to pursue life, liberty, property, and all that sort of stuff is good. And that's certainly what Ozpin has been doing, providing that sort of society with people, and Crow has helped him do that, and again, keep things stable. So Crow has definitely been doing good in the world. I don't like him saying otherwise, because it's not the case. He's being too hard on himself. And I get he's very mournful of what happened to Summer Rose and what happened to Team Stark. There's a reason he keeps the picture with him and stuff like that. Like, you know, Tai Yang, Crow, they both seem like they really loved being in Team Stark. Tai Yang has his own picture of Team Stark as well that we saw him looking at mournfully. So it's definitely apparent that, I don't know about Raven, but at least Crow and Tai Yang really mourn not just Summer Rose, though they do obviously mourn her, but they mourn the whole unfortunate circumstances surrounding, like, Team Stark and how it dissolved. It's just very sad. So we know that with Crow's semblance of misfortune, he is very hard on himself with, like, being around other people. If something bad happens around him, he'll just blame himself for it in his semblance. Even though it's such an abstract thing, we don't really know if it's his fault or not. It's not something that you can really confirm very easily one way or the other, because it's so abstract. But it's true that Crow most likely mourns Summer Rose and blames himself for a lot of the things that happened regarding her and Team Stark falling apart. And he has become an alcoholic because of this depression that he has. So I get where he's coming from. But at the same time, I don't like Crow just being this complainer. What happened to Volume 3 Crow, where it was like this dude who we didn't see very often, but we heard about, because we actually heard about Crow in Volume 1. It was like on a scroll, it just showed like Crow's name on it. So Crow was always this character that would just be like randomly in and out of the story. He was never like a main central point of the story. He would just appear randomly at times. And every time Crow appeared, you knew it was going to be either totally badass or hilarious. And in Volume 6, Crow... In Volume 5, Crow was taken to, like, he was turned into more of a comedic relief character, sadly. And in Volume 6, he's like half comedic relief, half just annoying. He did do some cool stuff in Volume 6, like specifically Volume 6, Chapter 1. His fight scenes were pretty cool there, even though he jobbed a little bit versus the Manticore. But still some cool stuff. But I don't know, man. Crow, I don't really like what they've been doing with his character entirely, even though I get why he is acting that way. Like I said, I get that he's depressed and mournful and resentful to himself. And the other thing, too, it's become increasingly apparent to me that Crow isn't a good leader. He's not. Some people are natural-born leaders. Some people aren't natural-born leaders. And some people just suck at leading. Crow is the third category. He's not a leader at all. He's better at being a follower. He's better at taking orders. And just like... It's not supposed to be a huge insult to him, because you need people that are good at taking orders in life. And you also need people that are good at giving orders in life. And like Crow even admit before, there's a reason why he stopped teaching at Signal. He doesn't like teaching. He doesn't really like being around a lot of people. He prefers to just work on his own. That said, I'm sure he loved working with Team Stark when things were in the prime, the golden ages, right? But after Team Stark dissolved, most of the work he did with Ozpin was just him being sent around Remnant to gather intelligence. He was working by himself. He stopped teaching. He just preferred to be by himself. And now we have the situation where he's put in charge of leading this group of younger people, and certainly he feels responsible for their well-being and their safety. So I get why Crow is hesitant about stealing a ship from Atlas and trying to take it all the way across the ocean. He's worried something's going to happen to these younger people that he's supposed to be kind of guiding right now. He doesn't want anything bad to happen to them, you know? He feels like he's hurt enough people in his life. So on top of the fact that it's a crazy plan, he's also worried about being around there because, again, his semblance. So it's just all around a situation that he wouldn't want to get into, and that's why he shut down that plan so quickly. But RWBY ends up taking her leadership role more seriously, and this is an amazing scene right here. So RWBY's a character that, like Pyrrha, I liked, but she's never been anywhere close to like a favorite of mine. But all of Volume 6, RWBY's really been growing on me. The maturity that RWBY has been showing has been really awesome to see, especially when other characters that are older than her have been acting way more immature. You know who I'm talking about. So I really like how RWBY has been like taking the leadership more and more seriously, growing into it more and more and more, because we've seen her develop. You know, she was not a great leader in the beginning. That said, she's always been really good at coming up with like team attacks. So she's always been pretty good with the tactical stuff regarding a leader, with how to get the team to work together with their semblances and stuff like that. But the other side of being a leader, like, she hasn't been that good at, aside from like in combat. But every volume she's been becoming more and more of a better leader as a whole, and now we see throughout Volume 6 really she's like kicking into high gear with becoming a leader. So that's awesome. So I really like that. Although it's kind of sad to see her giving Crow such a hard time, but he does need that wake-up call. And again, Crow really isn't the best character to be leading them because he's not a good leader himself. RWBY is, though. And that said, there are some nitpicks I have with this scene with RWBY, honestly. It's like a great and awesome speech, and RWBY continues to impress me with how well she is taking that leadership role. But the speech definitely has its weak points as well. For example, RWBY says, "We've been in bad situations before and we didn't need an adult to save us." Immediately I'm thinking of, oh, what about the time Tyrion was literally about to kidnap you and kill Jaune, Nora, and Ren, and Crow arrived out of nowhere and saved you? Or the time Yang took you when you were like a baby through the woods and Beowulf rode up on you and Crow came up and saved you? Or what about the time that Crow was about to die and, well, the adults flying the airship from Haven saved all you guys? Or what about the time that you were at Haven and you were all about to get killed and Raven beat Cinder? And, you know, Raven's an adult who literally saved everybody. If Raven didn't do what she did there at Haven, the good guys literally would have been all killed. Like, literally, the story would have been over. Raven saved the day big time at Haven. Unintentionally, in a way. But, well, not totally unintentionally. Like, she always planned on betraying Cinder in that deal they made. So, you know, if Raven actually didn't betray Cinder, good guys would have been screwed entirely. So there's multiple times where good, like, adults have saved, like, kids. Plus, RWBY refers to them as kids, but they're not really kids. Now, to give RWBY some credit, I mean, well, first of all, before I do that, like, RWBY's 17 now. Weiss, Yang, and Blake are 19 now. The rest, you know, Jaune, Nora, and Ren are probably around Yang, Blake, and Weiss's age. And Maria is literally an old lady. So no, your group is not just a bunch of kids. Now, to be fair to RWBY, Crow's the one who referred to them as kids. But I think a better response from RWBY would have been, like, telling him that they're not kids anymore. Like, they've gone through a lot of crap. They've had a lot of life experiences. Aside from the fact that literally they're not kids anymore, aside from RWBY and Oscar in terms of age. And Oscar, like, also has Ozpin in there, so it's a little bit weird. But aside from that, they've been through a lot of life experiences and stuff already. So I think a better argument would have been, you know, we've been through a lot, as have you. It doesn't matter what age we are. We need to be in this together. I think that would have been a way better argument to say to Crow at that point, because you shouldn't be dividing them into, like, adults and kids. That's just, like, silly. That's just weird to me. Like, I don't know. It's just a weird line, honestly. I think unity is better. It doesn't matter, again, what age you are, as long as you are on the same page and that you're willing to do what is best to support the cause, which in this case is trying to get the relic sealed up, because you can't freaking let that super powerful object, like, be around where it can potentially get stolen easily by Salem. So that's my little nitpick with that scene. But I want to reiterate, aside from that little nitpick, I love the scene. It was amazing. And we're getting towards the end of the review now, guys. So the final thing I want to talk about is that look that RWBY gives at the end. The camera's just zooming in on her. I talked to some people about this in my live stream already, and a lot of you guys agreed. I feel like this is a look that Summer Rose has given to Crow in the past, or at least a look that Summer Rose has given in the past. I would say there's a very high probability that eventually when we finally get a scene of Summer Rose in a flashback or something, we will have her giving this exact same look that RWBY gave here at the end. Just pure determination. I feel like this was literally a look that Summer had at one point, and that was like kind of showing through RWBY in that scene, and that's amazing. I love it. Of course, that's just speculation, that's a theory, but we'll see how it plays out, and I'm pretty confident in saying that it will play out in that way. But I've been wrong on things before. I've also been very right about things before. So we'll see, guys. We'll see. On that note, I'm gonna end this video. This turned into a 35-minute review. Wow, that is longer than I expected. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, though. And if you want access to my reactions early, consider sponsoring on Patreon. Link down below. $1 a month will get you access to those reactions up to a week early. So pretty cool stuff. There's also other perks depending on what tier you pick. Patreon link in the description below. And if you want to support the channel differently, well, we also have a one-time donation option through PayPal/Streamlabs. Link below as well. And as always, guys, a great way of showing support is simply by hitting that thumbs up button and commenting below and turning on the notification bell if you haven't already. With that said, guys, I'm going to end this video. I will catch you next time.